The User 2 mode has a main utility page with a whole bunch of buttons for doing different things, and 4 sub-modes for accessing 4 different pages. You can only access these 4 modes from the User 2 page. The main utility page up here has 8 buttons for getting music from iTunes. This section here is for navigating the browser of Live, and over here you've got buttons for toggling the send, returns, input and output options. You've got copy, paste, delete, duplicate, undo and redo here. Down the bottom you can control BPM in 1 BPM ranges or 0.2 of a BPM here. You can pitch bend and pitch adjust here, and you've got transport controls for start, stop, record. This is the DJ page, and it's basically a 2-channel DJ mixer. You can see that as I press this button, it becomes more red as I turn it left and becomes more green as I turn it right. You also have a visual reference here in the sends to show you what's happening, and down here in the actual rack you can see what's happening with the EQ. There's also a bass cut button which turns these 3 buttons red, so you can see it's cut on, cut off. You've got FX control up here, so I can use my wet dry here, and then there's a reset button here so I can get wet and then get dry. The next button here you'll see is a toggle switch and has 4 states, 0, 1, 2 and 3, and a different colour for each state, so red, orange, yellow and green, and each one of those corresponds to an effect here, red, orange, yellow and green. So I can tell which effect I'm on just by the colour of the button. The next thing over here is I have a toggle switch between 2 modes, and the orange mode gives me access to 4 momentary switches for the 4 orange effects in this rack. If I switch to this mode, then I have 4 momentaries on the green effects. The next section in the middle here is the volume controls. So I have 2 buttons, or a button at the top and at the bottom for on-off, full volume, no volume, and then you've got sliders in between which allow you to slide up and down. At the bottom here you've got just some utility controls for navigating around the session view, up, down, left and right, and you've also got zoom in, zoom out, and lastly you've got some buttons here to start and stop the clip in the currently selected scene. This is a utility page. These controls can be assigned to anything, freely mapped to anything in Live. So here's a volume control, and here's a on-off switch. They also give feedback, so you can see here as I move it on the screen, it moves on the Launchpad as well, as does the on-off switch. This page here is for device control, and you'll see here that as I use these buttons to tab to a different rack, it updates in the colours here. So each one of these buttons gives me a visual reference for where it's currently located. And at the top here, it gives me an 8-slot LED reference for the level of the currently selected macro. It will give you the best of bank. So on a rack, it'll give you the 8 macro knobs. On any other instrument, it'll just give you the best of the 8 parameters for that device. So I can move to these and get an update. And if I want to move any of these, I can use the sliders to move it up and down. And down at the bottom here I have variable control, so if I want to move it just minutely, I can have it on the slowest control, medium control and fast control. and you can see that as I move it, I get the reference light here, so the green, and then yellow, orange, and red, and I also get the reference at the top here. These three buttons here allow me to quickly access a particular state, so on the currently selected macro or control. So I can go to 0, I can go to 64, I can go to full on. So if I wanted to put this particular rack with all macro controls on it 64, I could just select it and press it onto 64. There's also a reset button here which allows me to reset all controls back to 0. So I can use these controls to navigate to different tracks. Once I'm on my track, I can control a rack or select different racks. So that's device control. The last page here is just for a bit of fun, and it allows you to display different things on the screen. Over here are in particular letters. So over here I've got my letter bank. I have one clip for each letter, and if I want to use something I can just drag it and put it into this column here. They all have follow actions so that they'll play after one another. So if we have some beats going, we can then just trigger these clips over here.
RIS